Thanks everybody for joining us for this discussion of life and love after death. And I have with me my friend, Josh Lewis, who we talked to just a few weeks ago. Hey, Josh. So I'm going to pin both of us. Hey, Josh. I want to talk about this subject. And before we got on here, I was explaining to Josh how I wanted to talk about channeling. And just real briefly, I want to talk about why that subject, specific to me, because a lot of people don't necessarily know this, but I opened up because I became a channel. That was my path to this work, was that I learned a channeling class. Something about it just resonated with me. I just dove into it, just started channeling every day for almost 6 months. I didn't know that that's really not typical. I didn't have anything compared to. And at the end of that time, I became telepathic, I became clairvoyant, I just knew things about people, and I couldn't really function very well in my life because I just completely opened up. That said, I actually was happier than I've ever been, healthier than I'd ever been, because I understood later, much later, that my energy field just completely opened up and my vibration shifted, and I was really in touch with my higher self and guidance. So a lot of things were challenging that happened, things that for most people they'd find hard to overcome, like I couldn't work anymore, I couldn't function in some ways, and yet the universe just provided opportunity and even money and support, and it blew my mind. And I kind of, to be honest with you, forgot about that until about maybe a week ago, when Alan reminded me. He goes, remember the time when you opened up and your whole world changed, and my life did change. That's how I later met him. And he says, you're on the cusp of that now too. And that connecting with a loved one in the spirit world can be a similar spiritually transformative experience for people if they understand how that works. Because when you're reaching for, whether in my case in the beginning was my guides, my higher self, what do you want to call it, or your loved one in the spirit world, because they're all in, well, our loved ones are in the fifth dimension, and let's say the angelic realm is, of course, is higher, but we are reaching for non-physical in any case. And when you do that, you are expanding. He showed me, like, you're reaching, your understanding of what reality is now expanded, because you're having this experience that you cannot deny. And he said, that's the point, is that people are all in their head and they think, well, this is what's real, this is what isn't real. But really, the only reality you have is your experience. I know I experienced this. I know I felt my loved one's love when it came to me, or I know I sense this peace, or right, like whatever we're experiencing emotionally, physically, whatever with our senses, that's real. The other things, like ideas, like beliefs, like are they real? Like, does it, we create from that. But for me, the channeling just opened the doorway. And because I didn't have any fear, because I was not raised in any religion. My parents were very loving people. They were just open-minded people. That wasn't, my dad was a Buddhist, but never told me about it. My mother took me to church one day just because she felt like that would be her duty as a mother to introduce me to religion, but she wasn't religious. And I love Jesus. So I said, I want to go to church and talk to Jesus, And she said, sorry, honey, you can't go into the church because, you got to go to the Sunday school. And I rebelled. I said, I'm not going to school after going to school for 5 days a week. I want to talk to Jesus in the church with the stained glass windows, And she said, they won't let you in. And I said, well, I don't want to go then. I'll just talk to God on my own. I'll talk to Jesus on my own. So in any case, I didn't have any beliefs about the other side. And later when I opened up, I found out that my grandmother had been a psychic medium. So she could talk to the spirit world, and she was very spiritual. And when I opened up, my grandmother kind of talked to my mother from the other side and told her that everything would be fine because I was just like her. So I'm just saying, talking about channeling, because as I was trying to explain to Josh, I think that for some people, everybody's different, but for some people, that can be I'm going to say gentler or kind of more organic way into connecting with the other side if it resonates with you. If you feel like that feels comfortable to me, because if you feel drawn to it, that's your higher mind, higher self saying, come here, this is the way. Because when I heard about channeling, I mean, it was really weird. Even back then in 87, when I first saw it, to see this woman go into trance and this entity talk through her, it was very weird. But something inside of me said, this is interesting. I want to know what this is. Like, I want to find out about it, and that I found out later, that was my higher self saying, this is for you. This is going to lead to you becoming more of who you are, because that's how the universe works. It's always kind of tugging us along, like, come here, like this is good. This is good. You're right. Come this way. Right. And a lot of people are not listening. So we're always being guided, even if we're not, psychically open, because I wasn't at the time completely. I was a waitress. So in our work, we're focusing more on teaching people how to channel through writing messages from their loved ones. Like I wrote our book. I wrote with Alan that I brought through his messages. Other people brought through his messages too. And also vocal channeling, like voice channeling, because I know the process of channeling, whether it's your guide or in this case, your loved one in the spirit world, it's actually a way of blending your energies with that consciousness. So especially in the case of a partner, that can be quite powerful, because a lot of times your partner, soulmate, twin soul, they're part of you, they're not you, but they're part of you. So part of your identity. So it's very natural you can channel anyone really, but certainly someone you love, husband, wife, partner, that's not difficult. And in doing that, what I've experienced is there's more, I feel more of a deeper connection with Alan, because it's like we're kind of more merged, and a lot of times his thoughts come very easily into mine, and I know the difference, but that takes time to develop. But the way we teach is to help people discern the difference between their guides, the voice of their guides, and then here's their loved one or somebody else, because there's a different energy, if you will, like they feel different. And Josh, you probably know how that is. You can feel like there's a certain density to some spirits and a lightness with another, or you can just feel they're different. And even if you can't fully describe it. So when people start learning that they can discern their loved ones, and even learn to see them clairvoyantly. Like I just recently worked with a client. I pointed out to him, I said, you're already clairvoyant. And he didn't know that. And I said, you saw this and this and this. And he goes, yes. I said, that's clairvoyance. You just think because it's not solid, that's not clairvoyance, but you saw them like a superimposed image. I said, that is clairvoyance. So we teach that, help people understand how they already have these abilities, how the spirit world is already talking to them, but they're not noticing that. They think that that's just them, right? That's just me talking to myself. But it's so easy for spirit to talk to us, especially our guides and our loved ones. Not so much like Alan's saying, not so much strangers, maybe, but the people closest to us, the loved ones closest to us, because of our love bond, and our guides, because our guides are always with us. And in some cases, because they're always with us, it's hard to discern, is that my guide or me, because they're always in our field. So we kind of have an exercise. We have that guide step out front of them and see, like, can you feel them now? Because, and again, this is all about kind of noticing that you can feel it, like starting to sense it, developing those senses that nobody told them that they could do, right? Because how many people have been told, oh yeah, your guide is with you, but just imagine them outside of you and try feel them. Oh, I mean, I can do that. Like, oh, and now I had this experience. And I know I had this experience. So we're more about giving people those experiences And yes, like teach a lot. I teach a lot about consciousness and about nature reality, but that's just so the conscious mind will go, okay, I understand that there's a basis in even in science, like quantum physics, of why this is. But we need the experience, especially the experience of the love that comes from the other side, and including our guides and of course our partners or loved ones through the veil. So that I just kind of to lay that foundation. And I know we have people joining us in the Zoom room who are having experiences with their partners through the veil. But otherwise, we're going to talk about life and love through the veil and after death, because that's happening with me, and I'm hearing about that from other people, and I know you are too. So, anything you'd like to add, Josh, to that?
I mean, I think everything you're saying is just it's clicking. I'm someone that I'm experiencing all of that. I mean, I've experienced a lot of that already in my work. It's been 10 years of me doing the kind of work that I do. I'm a trained medium. I am a clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, claircognizant. And yet, even with that, and with that, a lot of experience, I still have a lot of moments where I don't fully understand what is exactly happening. And I think that it's okay. If you're waiting to figure it out or master it, then you'll be waiting or figuring it out for a long time. The best way to do it is to just start doing it. If that's what you want to do, you feel led by it. I mean, clearly you said that if you feel the tugging from your soul or from higher self to pull you into doing something like that. Most people don't really give it too much thought until there's a loss of a loved one, a spouse or a child or something. And then they start contemplating their own mortality and where are their loved ones? Are they okay? And they start giving thought to those kinds of things. You know, I started out just channeling. I mean, that's all I did. I didn't have a lot of visual stuff going on at first. I didn't have, I would get some feelings of things for sure. But, the medium I worked with in the beginning, she was a channeler. She didn't see, she didn't feel, she didn't get things like that. She just was clairaudient, and she would just channel. And that's how she did it. I mean, she would feel something sometimes. I mean, she would, but when she would lock in, and she didn't have to do trance mediumship where she had to really just kind of, close her eyes and let that being take over in a sense. She would just tune into that voice and kind of shut down the prefrontal cortex of her brain and move it over to the right side and just be in that right side dominant, whereas where that side of the brain is in charge of the intuitive aspect, the creative aspect. And that's interesting because it's a part of the creative aspect. And so there's a creation aspect that has to happen here because we are creating along with, the reality of those experiences. We are still having to create a place for those experiences to happen and be an active participant. But the channeling came in. I mean, it was me communicating with my higher power, Christ. And he would come in and he would speak to me. And it would be kind of, it would be word for word type situation. The voice sounded like mine a little bit, but it wasn't. I knew it wasn't. It was a different voice.
Right.
But everything was subtle. And I think that's what you were touching on, is that there's a lot of this there's subtleties of this. I've always been someone that's been involved in instrumental transcommunication, which is using equipment in addition to my intuitive ability. I don't need the equipment. I don't always use the equipment. I always have my intuitive ability that must be at front and center of what I'm doing. And if it's not there, or if I'm not tuning into it, then the evidence isn't there. But I'm kind of like, I should have been from, Missouri or something, I'm like the show me psychic,
state.
because I have to see things, and I believe my faith in my higher power is huge. My faith in my guides is huge. The faith in the loved ones that are coming through is very big, and it's there. And I have to act on that faith in order for it to work. But I'm looking for validation. You know, a lot of times I get a lot of things and I go, oh, I just saw this. I just see this, or I see this person coming in and doing this, and they're wearing this, and they're showing me this. I go, is that right? You know, because I doubt myself at times, or I doubt, you know, and I think that's very normal, that to have an experience with a loved one, a guide, and go, did that really happen? Or was that my own imagination? Right. I can have that. And I think everyone that is trying this can have that kind of experience. Is that really happening? And then I would go to my box or my equipment and I would ask them, I'd say, hey, I just saw this or this. I just saw this. Can you tell me if that's true? And they come through and say, yes, that's exactly right. Or yes, you just got it exactly right. And what that did for me and for the people I'm doing the session for is it starts to show that we can believe those inner experiences that are very subtle. All of a sudden, what just happened in my mind that feels almost just like blips of thought now become even more of a reality when the voice through the equipment says, yes, I just did that. Now, all of a sudden, you can start trusting those visions without getting validation through a box or a recorder or some kind of equipment. You know, it's very important. I'll tell this quick story that, I didn't lose a significant other. I know a lot of people, I've done a lot of sessions for people that have lost significant others. Okay. I have a partner, Nikki, I've been with for 14 years. She's the mother of my children. I love her very, very much. I have a wonderful relationship with her. But I will say this, that when I did some very serious, some of the most important work that I think I've ever done, which was with Gabby Petito, the girl that was missing a couple of years ago, and it was a big story. She was all over the news with her boyfriend Brian. That was, okay. And the work that her and I that we both did, it was just remarkable. I mean, the stuff that she came through and was able to tell us before the authorities were able to release it. I mean, detailed information about her death and what happened. It was just remarkable. What happened was afterwards, her and I, there was this bond created, and I don't feel like bad for it. I have a beautiful bond with my partner, and I don't think that takes away from that. But there was this amazing connection that was created with her. And so now it's easier for her to communicate with me if she wants, because of that connection. She can come through my equipment very well. I mean, pretty amazing. And this is what's cool. I was on my boat, weeks ago or months ago at this point now. And I remember I was on the boat by myself, and I felt that Gabby showed up. I just felt the vision of her sitting on the bench next to me. So there was this vision of her there. Then I started to get a couple of words coming through. So there was a little bit of this channeling, this clairaudience that was coming through. And then I just sat there and just had a conversation with her. I just had a conversation with her, and it was a beautiful experience. Now, there was a light on my boat. It was at night, and there was a light that kept going out, and I kept having to fix the light. I kept having to go from the wheel to the light, and then back to the wheel and the light. And I kept doing that. And, weeks later, I asked for her through my equipment, and I was connecting with her. And I said, I had this great experience with you on my boat. I felt you there. Were you there? Was that really happening? And I said, and she said just two words. I mean, at that moment, she goes, stupid light. And so she, just by saying those two words, stupid light, she was able to really convey a very powerful message. She was there. It was happening, so there was a lot going on that with just that message. So it was a very smart, answer that she gave us or gave me.
Yeah.
And
isn't it funny how spirit, usually uses an economy of words?
Right.
Like that's really as simple as possible. Right.
Yeah.
But also the way they communicate is, especially higher self, higher mind, or even guides and our loved ones, is through this impulse, nudges we get, the impulse we get. Oh, I'm curious about that. Oh, I feel like I want to do that. I don't know why, but
for sure.
Right. Because they can't talk to us in a whole sentence
all the time.
They're just going to impress upon us this sense, like, go do this. And we can ignore it.
Yeah. A lot of times though, to add to that is that, your guides are working with you way more than you realize.
Absolutely.
They're able to convey a lot to you, impart things on your heart. They're able to move your eyes to the clock at a certain time. And that's why you see all of a sudden the 111, the 222, the 333. You have those kinds of symbols and, you know, those kinds of ways. Those are easy ways for them to communicate. A song can come on and you know, the song might have already been coming on. It's not like they just play DJ, and they can affect electronics. They can affect electronics, but a lot of times it's getting you to become aware of something at a specific time. And then you're like, whoa, you know, okay. And so, you know, there's ways that they do that. But then when we actively tune in, you know, I have a meditation that I give to all my clients that are doing sessions. Elizabeth is on with us, and she did a session with me, and she's done work with you. And then she did a session with me where we brought through her loved one, and her loved one came through, her significant other came through very well. It was really powerful. We did some photos and stuff like that. But Elizabeth, I remember, I mean, I have the meditation that I give. It's 15-minute meditation. It's very simple. I send it to anyone that wants it. It's not like I charge. But, you know, it's a grounding, and you prepare yourself energetically, and then you go into a 5D room, right? You go into a 5D room pretty much that is an astral room that you meet your loved one there, and you sit in chairs and you have an experience with them before the session. And that's always a very effective way for them to tune in, actively really say, okay, let's have an experience together right now, you know?
Right. And that's beautiful. And that's great. And what I'm hearing from Alan, this is from Alan, saying that's great. And people also can understand that it can also be really easy to just connect, right? And certainly, gosh, your spirit box is a great way to confirm things. And then also realize, but I could go beyond that. Like I could also just trust. I can get to a point where I just trust, and then I'm having this experience because I just trust it. But in the beginning, we like need those stepping stones.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
Eventually, I mean, eventually you're not supposed to just, I mean, I have patrons that are still getting sessions every month where they're partaking in the group sessions, and then they'll get a message or two every month, you know, but I encourage them. The whole point is, don't wait this month and then have the conversation or have the exchange and then wait till next month again at the same time. Have experiences in between, and just start cultivating your own experiences. Eventually, you don't need to have the boxes or whatever. It's not like you need to do that, but you know, you can just have regular conversations with your loved ones.
Right. And then of course they're thinking, but I don't trust that. Right. So that's why they'll go to a box or go to a medium or go to somebody else. But the thing is, if you don't at some point just trust it, then how are you going to build that muscle? How are you going to have the ongoing communication? I mean, because even though I've had a background in this work for over 30 years, when I started kind of perceiving Alan or seeing him, I mean, I too was like, is this really you? Like, how do I know I'm not talking to myself? Like, I understand that. That's very human, you know? But he kept talking. Like I just knew he kept putting those thoughts in my head. I said, okay, I know I'm not talking to myself because I don't even know what the heck this is conversation going. And so as I wrote it, it was very evident to me because of the way he was expressing himself, what he was talking about. I didn't know the direction was going. And that's why I encourage people to start writing. Like just that's as easy it is. And it's so easy that you're going to, you know, doubt that too. But if you keep writing, you're going to see through the body of writing that is not you. And so that is where putting it directly in their hands, right? And then also allowing their loved one or their guide, even whoever they're talking to tell them things, to communicate things, to give them guidance or insight. Sometimes they'll even tell you what's going to happen. I'm not necessarily saying predictions, but they can give you insight into a situation. They've done that and more for me. So any form we can get of direct proof, all of it, I would suggest to people to explore, you know, and not just get fixated on, well, I'm just going to go get a mediumship reading every month or I'm just going to do like tarot reading every month or whatever the thing is, right? Like go beyond that. Like what else is there? Understanding the nature of reality and who you are as a soul, and why are more people opening up now at this time? I don't think it's a coincidence that we're living in the time of the awakening and ascension, and that we are literally transitioning from third density to fourth density, going to unconditional love. And therefore, the veil is thinning, not because they're thinning it, because we are breaking through. We are rising up in our consciousness. And so there is a blending. Like the other, let's just say other beings who live in other dimensions, part of the evolution is they're physical and non-physical. You don't completely go from the physical density to non-physical as a species, or other civilizations. They're bridging it. So we're bridging it. That brings a whole other subject of extraterrestrials or other species, but it is all related, actually. Extraterrestrials and metaphysics and spirituality, it's all one. There's only God anyway, right? So it's all one thing. So when we understand all the connections to all that we are preparing for contact with other worlds, we are at the same time raising our consciousness. We then can connect to the other side. It's becoming easier and easier. And for the people who just trust and say, all right, I'm just gonna see where that goes, and get confirmation when they can, but then eventually rely less and less on it and say, I trust my experience. I know this feels good. I know there's a benevolent force that's guiding me, because it's all love. How could it not be benevolent? The only way we get in trouble is when we doubt and fear, and we get in our own way and we block that, and then we go off the rails. But when we trust and know somehow this is going to work out, we call that power in, whether you want to call it God or Christ consciousness or whatever it is, because that's the real reality. There's only love. So when you just hone in on that love and you say, no matter what, I'm going to just trust that, go with it, things start opening up. So with Alan, I just started to, he just told me, he says, you in the beginning, he says, you're going to think you're talking to yourself, but you got to keep talking to me, because if you keep talking to your friends that see me and can talk to me, you're going to keep only doing that. So you have to stop asking other people. You have to stop getting readings. You have to just talk to me all the time. And so I did. And of course I thought like, oh, this is stupid. I'm just talking to myself. Okay. But I kept doing it, and I kept hearing things every once in a while that confirmed to me that was him, like giving me words that I didn't understand what that meant. And I go look it up, or telling me something that I have to go figure it out. And there are ways for them to confirm for us, but we can't necessarily expect that right out the gate. I think this is just based on my experience personally and with clients, we have to give them time, but they can do that. I've heard them do that. And I suggest people ask for confirmation from their guides, from their angels, from their loved ones in spirit. They can give it to us. Then ask them a question. They'll usually take about 72 hours to give you that sign or that confirmation, but you have to listen. What am I being guided to do, or watch or listen to, or whatever, because that's how they're going to confirm to you, right? So I feel, based on what I'm seeing with people I'm working with and in my own experience, that it's just becoming easier. And really the only challenge is, do we believe, and can we just trust? Can we just go in experience? But the people who have a hard time with trusting, I can understand. They're usually people who've been hurt, they've been abused, misled. So there's a lot of that they're carrying. There's a lot of, cynicism rather than skepticism.
I've heard this a lot, and I felt this way myself, and I have to keep pushing through it. But a lot of people are afraid of being considered or feeling crazy. And that's something that I have, I've had people tell me, is that they don't want to give in too much to it, or to believe it too much, almost without proof, because they feel like they're kind of losing their sanity if there's no way to kind of confirm that. And I agree with you that, it's really amazing how spirit will find ways to validate that they are
Yeah.
coming through. Many times I'm driving, and I pray a lot when I'm driving, or I talk to my higher power when I'm driving to Christ, and and he'll say something to me, and I'm like, is that you coming through? Is that, and I always do that, or I might kind of, and he'll say something very subtle, very small, but very poignant, or like very,
Yeah.
like, and I'll go, okay. And then later on, I'm able to validate it some way. And I'm like, oh, wow,
Before you go, I just want to touch base with you saying in the car, because I always tell my students the best way to connect to spirit is in your car, because you're in a self-enclosed little space, right? And
yeah.
it's really easy to talk to them or talk to your loved one or your, like Jesus or your guide or God or whoever. So I've had people have really profound experiences just driving in their car and saying, oh, I'm going to talk to my loved one, or I'm going to talk to my guide. So yeah,
Well,
continue.
all of us have been in that position where we get in the car and we start thinking, and then we get to our destination, but we don't remember driving really
Right.
to the destination. We don't remember making that right turn and stopping at that light, and all these things, because we can we can drive kind of like brushing our teeth and stuff. We start to get to that point. But it's a good spot, and of course be
Yeah.
safe, and you're not going to trans channel when you're
No,
driving,
no.
but you know what I mean? You can tune in and really start to kind of,
Talk.
spirit can get your ear, in
Yeah,
that
yeah. And
moment.
I like this because it actually is a very normal way of kind of talking to them in a ordinary fashion, because you're driving, but because it's so automatic, you know where you're going, you're not out of it, but you're relaxed, right? And you're only doing the driving. You're not distracted by people talking to you and other stuff going on, and the TV blaring in the other room. And so then get your attention. And I think it helps you practice just making this normal. Like, okay, I'm just talking to you. You're just talking to me. And then that can transfer over into the time you're not in your car, that you can just be talking and make it seem
Mhm.
like it's a very part, just an organic, natural part of your life. So, but that is like a channeling state, when you're just driving and you're getting those messages, but you can be fully conscious. And in fact, the trance channeling that I was taught in 87, that's generally speaking now not the way people are channeling. I mean, they can, everybody's different, but this is really about just making this part
Conscious
of your
channeling.
being a conscious channel for your own spiritual growth, which, because really, if we're all one, we have the potential to connect with anyone, because there's only oneness. So the only thing limiting us are our own beliefs. So if I'm afraid that I'm going to be called crazy, then that's going to block me. I have to kind of not give a rip when anybody thinks of this. I kind of have to not fear that I'm going to go crazy, and examine that belief and say, is that really true? Am I really going to get locked up and put in a padded room? Where's that come from? Is that from my ancestors? Is that from my mother?
I think it's from society, though, just to touch on. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
we all have this, innate, like, sense of survival. And there's a fear that we are going to be ostracized or looked at or not get what we need in life because we're looked at, and so, and I'm
Like
not projecting that onto any by any, means. I will say that I was a prominent businessman, and I entrepreneur, and I did all kinds of, I very respected with, starting businesses and doing things like that. And then here I am,
I
doing
hear
this
you.
kind of work. And it's been like a coming out of the closet in a way of saying, hey, listen, this is the reality of
This
it. And
is
I'm
real.
not going to apologize to anyone
Right.
for it, because this is the reality. Hope that I'm not pushing it on anyone, but
Right.
the reality is that we are connected to the source. We have the source within us. We are part of that source, and we have an ability to have a relationship with our loved ones on the other side. I mean, their lives are still going on. And I get that. I hear them say that. I hear them say, we are still living and our lives are continuing on. And I'm able to not just have a life over here on the other side, but with you
With
still.
you, with
And
us,
that's
actively,
really
right here.
an active participation of life with each other. And that's really amazing,
And we have to not really, really not care what people think, and understand we're
Right.
living in a different time. I don't know how many people tell me that, every day tell me that they are surprised that the people around them are actually open to this. People are waking up. And that whole fear of what people will think or that they think we're crazy, that is more of an ancestral thing, because throughout history, of course, we're burned at the stake, where we were ostracized or, abandoned, like pushed out of the community. But that's not now. This is a different time. And so we have to keep reminding ourselves of this. There'll always be people who are naysayers. You just let them have their beliefs and you walk on. But there are more people that are curious. And those people feel like they don't have anybody to talk to about it. Because like you said, they're like, well, people are going to think I'm weird. But yet the very people you think might be judging you or me are actually, some of them are actually curious. They're like, I have weird things happening to me. That's what I'm hearing from people who don't believe in this, but because we are literally raising our consciousness together, people who don't believe in this are having experiences. And then they go, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
Like that just happened to me. Like what the, and that's to wake them up, that because they're going to be feeling some of it. And some of them, when they lose a loved one, that's when somebody can go through a spiritual awakening, because they start, for the first time, they start to think, well, maybe there's life after death. Maybe I'd have it all wrong,
I think that, people might think this is a very niche area of spirituality or of metaphysical stuff, whatever. But the reality is this affects everyone or pertains to everyone, and everyone is going to transition to the other side at some point. Everyone is going to have loved ones that are going to transition to the other side. So whether it's now or later on in life, that you think about this or you give thought to this or considered what's going on, at some point, unless you are really just so immersed in the materialistic version of this world, you're going to think about this kind of thing at some point. You're going to have reason to think about it. Right. And so, however, I find people that are finding me on a daily basis, and I've got people that believed in this kind of thing their whole life, and then I have people that are like, I didn't believe in any of this, but I just lost this person, and I found you, and I'm interested in what you're finding and what you're capturing, what's going on. So it's a wide gamut.
Right gamut. I'm meeting people who are deeply religious their whole life, and then having these encounters, like physical, with their loved one, right? Like physical contact, and saying, what the heck is it? Because it's not even in their belief system. But then what I understand, because I'm a spiritual teacher, I understand this is probably in their soul contract. This was going to happen whether they believed it or not, because we're living in the time of the awakening. So some people are going to have these profound experiences and go, what the hell just happened? And they can choose whether to open that door or not, but this is probably going to keep happening, because that's the thing. If you're destined to go through that, that's going to happen. Your free will choice is what to do about it. Am I going to open the door, pursue it, or am I going to slam the door shut? That's where free will comes in. But certain things are going to happen whether they consciously want to or
they're going to keep calling to them.
And we're all in this together. I'm reminded that being positive, those of us who are positive and focused on love and all that, we have much more power collectively than those who are negative, because that energy is more restrictive, it's limiting, it's denser, right? And when you're coming from positivity and love, that is expansive, that's inclusive. So that is by definition going to be stronger and raises everybody up. So we're already shifted as a planet. Even though you're going to see a lot of chaos and negativity, there's more people who understand that this is who I am. This is who I stand for. I am the spirit. I am love. I don't want to be this negative being. I don't want to be my ego. I want to be my higher self. And I think that's the way to have this relationship through the veil, is understand that it is a spiritual journey. It's less than a psychic journey. There's psychic ability that you're going to open up to. But if you focus on seeing this as your spiritual path, if you will, rather than, I just want to, be clairvoyant. I just want to, be able to see the other side. Like that cannot be your focus. because that's not really what you need. What you need, which is going to really get you the fulfillment and experience you want, is you need that spiritual, awakening. You need that spiritual growth. And so it means connecting more to your higher self, trusting your experience, trusting when something feels good, that means it is good for you, because there's no negativity trying to mislead you. There's no like demon trying to take you off the side of the road, unless that's where you're coming from in your consciousness, that's your focus, that's the way you're living. Yes, then those beings, if you will, are there because you're in resonance with them. If you're in resonance with love, or a resonance with whatever you believe God is, right? Whatever your definition of that is, that can't find you. It can't find you. You're vibrationally in a whole nother world than that. So that's your protection. It's really your vibration. It's really your thoughts, your predominant thoughts. So with this relationship that I have with Alan, and what I suggest to people that if they want that is to focus on that and just trust, to go all in. Know that he's so there that he says he wouldn't let anything negative come in. It's be almost impossible. I'd have to go seek it, to go knock on its door.
That's interesting, because I've been doing this a long time, over 10 years, as far as really, and every day this is what I do. And it started out with, paranormal investigations, and we would encounter a little bit more of some negative messaging in the beginning, but that was, we were kind of more loosey-goosey, a little bit more open, and not as dialed in. Now it's been, I don't get negative things ever, really. And if I do get a negative message, it's not a demon or anything like that. It's the loved one that is expressing some kind of, dismay about something. And that's extremely rare. That's extremely rare. And that's due normally to the loved one and the person's history of something going on between them. So it's not because, and I've had many, people ask about hell and things like that. And I say, listen, I can't tell you that doesn't exist, but I will say that in my 10 years of experience, I don't get people saying they're in hell, or that there's a hell and they're burning in hell and all that crap. I don't get that. I have had a few spirits, a few souls on the other side that died because of either suicide or something, or a troubling situation, that say they're in the light, they're okay, they find a positive experience on the other side. And I ask them about hell, and they say there is no evil except for the wolf. Now that's an interesting comment. I've heard that the wolf was mentioned a couple times.
Oh, interesting.
And I will say that, even though I don't believe there's a fiery pit of fire with a guy with hooves and a pitchfork, I will say there is, I almost want to say that there is an energy, an entity that is not positive, but it's just isolated to that guy or that one thing. So I don't know how to quantify that or understand that, but I will say that they've many times said there is no place of evil. There's no place of evil. There's really no evil. There is this wolf. There is this one that tries to pull at us at times, but that, the way that it was described is that it's not to be feared. It's not to be feared. And that's a very interesting thing. So I would say that when they say that, when they're saying that, they are confirming there is an existence of maybe an evil one somewhere. I don't know what that means.
But
I don't know.
If we're talking about, but if we're talking about oneness, if God is one, right? Oneness includes evil.
Correct.
Oneness is everything.
You are correct.
You can't leave that out. Everything that you can imagine exists.
God is everything or nothing.
Because if you can't imagine it, then it wouldn't exist.
Yeah. We see that there are people that are acting out in evil in this realm, okay? And there's reasons for that. There's karma. There's definitely reincarnation and karma, I firmly believe, and what my research has shown. But and there are people on the other side that are still negative. Ones that were negative here are still acting negative on the other side. That is true. But I think what we don't realize is what you've already said, is that, love is the highest, strongest form of energy. It is the strongest energy that there is. Now, fear may be there close, next to it, because fear is a real power, is a real energy. It is there. But when we let go of the fear, we embrace the love. I tell people we have the keys to a Lamborghini. We are a Lamborghini, and that we think it's a Honda Civic. We don't realize the power that we have,
Right.
that we are a very high test, high performance piece of equipment, that our soul has access to. Our soul is that, but we have, and so, when we let go of the fear, and move past it, that we won't experience those kinds of fearful experiences anymore, is what I find.
Yeah, that fear is really part of the ego, and we had to take on an ego to have a personality structure to interface in this world and have the illusion of not being part of the oneness.
Right.
Because God wanted to experience herself. And the only way to do that is to say, okay, I got to separate, but I can't really separate because I'm one, but I'm going to create this ego persona and think that this is me. But that ego has to believe that it's there in its finiteness, that it could be killed, therefore it's fearful. So it has
the
ego
is the ego is the way it's been described to me, and the way I understand it is that, the ego is the soul associating itself with the body.
The ego is tied up with the body.
And so the whole idea between self-realization is realizing the self's true nature. And when we realize the soul's true nature, then we can still reside in the body and allow the ego to work for us instead of against us. And we can work with the ego. The ego is trying to falsely protect us all the time, and is saying things along the lines of, you're better than this, or you're less than this. And there's a lot of that talk that goes on. But, when we kind of say, okay, I know that that's not necessarily true. Feelings aren't necessarily fact. Emotions can come in and we can feel them. But when we kind of, our reaction is really the only thing we really have the power to. Things are going to happen. We can create. I don't mean to say that we don't have power to create. We do have power to create. Of course we do. But we have things that happen to us, and how we react is a big part of that reality. And so it's not reacting in fear, it's reacting in love, training ourselves to do that, training ourselves to understand the ego is going to think, I have Italian background, I make this kind of money, I have this,
that's your identity.
This is my body, I have, this, and there's all that identity, stuff. But constantly, and I find that I am able to detach from ego and reconnect more, reassociate myself more with my true self, my soul, my higher power, when I meditate, when I pray, when I meditate. Those are the ways to really touch the cloud, to get to the cloud, the cloud's information. Instead of just being on this device, I can hit the cloud, and I can be on all devices if I want, and really be in that place.
So in the time of our meeting, I just wanted to, because I know we're talking about, life and love after death, and we talked about a lot of mediumship, channeling, a lot of things, and just want to remind people that because we are one, and if you begin to communicate with your loved one, and especially channel their messages, channel them vocally, interact with them, I mean, that is key. Like, if you want more engagement, you have to engage. People think like they just want something to happen. Like, this is not a passive one-way experience. It's a co-creative experience.
I want to jump on that for 1 second, because I want to say this, that in your group, you have a lot more people that are a little bit more versed to this, understanding of this. They're being a little bit more proactive, because of what's going on. But this is supposed to be available for people in also the Proof of Afterlife group.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I see a lot of them. I mean, again, I'm one of, I think, 2 or 3 now, I don't know, of the approved readers, mediums in the group of Proof of Afterlife. I've been in the group for 10 years now, just as long as I've been doing this. or however it's been, how long it's been around. The point, so I see a lot of comments of people saying things like this. I'm a good person. I've been waiting a long time and I've been wanting a sign and I get no signs from my loved one. Am I not worthy? Am I not worth it?
No,
I get that.
I hear
I
you.
hear that a lot. And so I want to say to those people, a lot of times, you have to partake in this. You can't just be a bystander of just standing around waiting for the lights to flicker, waiting for something to happen for you to notice someone sitting on your bed or whatever. There needs to be some active participation. And a lot of the times those people are still very fearful of signs,
Yes.
yet they
Yes.
want the sign, but they're fearful of the signs.
Absolutely.
So I have to tell people, you got to be careful and just
Well,
not be careful, but you have to be active and you have to start
well,
tuning
that's what we're
into
talking
that.
about. You have to look at your belief system. Your
Yeah,
belief system is filtering everything. People don't
right.
get that. They think they're just walking through life and things happen to them. But more people are beginning to understand that through studying law of attraction, that kind of stuff, that, all right, I create my reality. How do I do that? What I believe in. If I'm feared of something, I'm going to create more things to be afraid of. If I trust, I'm going to create more things that will prove that I trust. They don't understand their power. And so, the other side, they can only do what they can do.
Right.
We have to work on ourselves. And it's everything is co-created in this reality, that reality. It's just not like we live in this little bubble by ourselves alone. And so, yeah, I understand some people have been waiting for so long, and like, what are you doing to evolve and grow? How are you changing? They've
Yeah,
changed.
actively participate though is really, and whether it's through, your program that you're offering, which
Right.
is, or through something that, like with what I do,
Sure.
where maybe they're starting out and they don't know where to begin and they don't want to
Wherever they
begin,
start.
wherever they start. It's just it, you're going to get something, if you have some
I
faith in
I think
belief.
the other challenges, this is not a problem, the challenges. There's a lot of, I hear this from people all the time. There's so much information on the internet now that people get very confused. I mean, I've had people say things like, well, I thought that, after when one religion, after 40 something days, they can't communicate with you anymore. I mean, there's all kinds of craziness
Oh, there's a lot of
that people hear,
misconceptions.
right? And so they just think, oh, well, this is impossible, or it can't happen to me, or what have you. But you have to wade through that and then start trusting that you're guided. This is what I would tell people. Your loved one is guiding you right now. I know that. So if you start trusting that, what am I guided to do? What I feel curious in learning or reading about? And when I do listen or hear something or whatever, or somebody tells me something, I will know whether that's right for me. I start activate, because everybody has a higher self. Everybody has a higher mind, and therefore everybody's intuitive. So if you start listening to your intuition, even if it seems like just a small voice or a slight feeling, it's going to get stronger. But if you're trying to discern this with your physical mind, that doesn't do it, because the physical mind only knows what's happening right now and in the past. What happened yesterday and all the years before, what's happening right now. It does not know what's coming or can't perceive the other side. It's not meant for that. It's your higher mind. And most people are just functioning with half of their mind, just their physical mind, not their higher mind. So that's really why this is a spiritual journey, and not, about just living in that part of you, right? That's just sees the world right here in front of us and thinks that's all there is. And it starts with just believing and seeing what happens, because you won't see it until you believe it anyway.
Right. Seeing is believing. And I definitely know that, we can go on faith, but when we get a couple, and that's why I love, what you're doing, because what's interesting about what you're doing, Pam, is that, I didn't know of you and I didn't know what you were doing. I've been doing what I do for a while, and you've been doing what you're doing for a while, and I didn't know what was going on. You found me somehow through an interview. I don't remember, but or something. But then you
Mm-hmm.
booked a session,
Mm-hmm.
and we did the session where Alan came through intuitively through me very well.
Yes.
Description and all those information and other messages that were not coming through the box. They were coming through me
Right.
intuitively. you were validating, and then we give Alan the box, which he was excited to try. He had heard about it. He had seen it on the other side and kind of guided you to do it. It was just so cool because he came through, he confirmed a lot of what you already knew. It wasn't like he was telling you a lot of new things. He was just confirming a lot of what you already knew, which makes it easier. Now for you, you were already kind of more dialed into that, but there were a lot of other women. And like I said, Elizabeth was one of them, but there were a good 4 or 5 other, people within your group that, booked sessions with me.
Right.
Based on the work that they've already done with you. So they were kind of prepped with a lot of that work and already were connecting with their significant other. Then they come to me after doing then the brief meditation that I give them. Now they're even more prepared, they do the session and they get amazing responses. One woman, Dara, she had such a beautiful session with her significant other, Robert, and it was just so powerful. And what he did was, he came through and, confirmed how she was already felt that that he was building a house for them on the other side and had all this wonderful experiences. And he says, yes, yes, yes. Like I already told her, yes, I'm telling her again that, yes, this is true. So what she already got, she was getting confirmation. But what was interesting was, and this can happen to all of us, we have a faith in a higher power, but we can have a crisis of faith. Something can happen to us, health, financial stuff, a loss of a loved one will start to challenge that faith. And so she was having a little bit of a challenge in her higher power in Christ. She was kind of like, having some moments of that. And he came through with 2 messages saying, yes, I'm connecting with you through the Lord. And that he was mentioning Christ's love is, you have Christ loving you. Christ is loving you from this side. And what she said that meant to her was just priceless. It really helped restore her faith. And so, but now she can go on to continue to have experiences with Robert without getting a session with me, without having the box give her, or any of my equipment giving her any audible responses. And she can now even trust those responses even more on her own responses, that she can trust, knowing he's already confirmed it, audibly through scientific evidence, that what she is encountering in spirit is actually happening in a realm, in a dimension that she is going to experience on her own one day, and confirm that it is true.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool, I think. And we can visit those dimensions too, actually. I'm in meditation and even Dreamtime, we're doing that. I just think we're going to see more people having these experiences. I see it happening in other groups that are not even like proof of life type groups. Okay, let's say grieving groups or something, right? I see people saying like, oh yeah, I saw my loved one, or something like I had this sign, whatever. So the other side is just getting stronger, saying, you guys, like, hello, you guys are all rising in consciousness together. And some of you are not paying attention. We're already like knocking on your door. And so it will become easier and easier to connect but it's up to us with our beliefs, like what are our beliefs either open the door or keep it closed.
Right.
But I know people have to work through their fears and their doubts and all that. But when you hear stories of people who have these amazing experiences, realize a lot of them, they had it because they didn't have fear. Like, what does that tell us?
Mm-hmm.
It tells us fear is the limiting factor.
Yeah, a lot of fearful people just really prevent themselves from having experiences.
Yeah. So if I was a fearful person and I heard that and recognized that the fear is what's limiting these people and it's limiting me, I'd go, all right, well then let me just see what I can do about clearing that. Because obviously that's the problem, not that that's not real, that this is the problem. So
but I want to add to this too, and I don't have much more to say on all of this, but I will say that everyone has their own way, like you said, beliefs and all that, but the reason I do what I do, or okay, let me rephrase that. Well, the reason I share it on a channel, the reason I put myself out there so much, and I get, attacked for it a lot, but I'm able to bypass that kind of hate and move on and then recognize all the love and the work and the progress and the help that it's doing. But people ask me, well, where do I begin? What do I do? If I want to, and I say, listen, there's probably a million ways to start this, a million different ways to start this or to introduce this into your life. If you have fear or you have doubt, if you have, frustration or any of these things, I wouldn't just start, and this is just me, this is one bozo's opinion, whatever. I have to go to my higher power for all of this. So if I'm in a spot where I don't know, or I'm fearful, or I'm upset about something, or angry, or whatever, any emotion that's not conducive to the type of work that I do, I have to go to my higher power. I have to go to source. I have to go to my creator, for me, my guide, as far as my master guide, that's Jesus Christ. I have a guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, but I have to go to them first, and then I can do the spiritual work. So that doesn't mean that everyone has to find a God right now or whatever, if you don't have one, but I just know that that's the source of love. And if I'm in fear about something, then I need to find the love. I need to go to the love. I need to let go. The opposite of fear is love. The opposite of love is fear. They could say courage is fear. Well, opposite. But no, it's really, those are the two strongest emotions. And again, love is the stronger. And as you identified in this talk, but I have to go to that source. And when I go to that source, I'm going to get all that I need. And then I'm going to get what I need in order for me to communicate with my guides, with Gabby, with whoever else I want to communicate with your loved ones. But I have to do that. So that's just for me. That's my opinion. However, anyone else finds that. Yeah. But if you got fear, I go to God with it.
Oh, no, that's good advice. I'd say that too. Just go to God is like, well, you are God. We are all God, right? We're part of.
Have that.
We
spark,
are. We have aspect of the one, and we are the one. We're like all of it. So yeah, I think it comes back to just, you have to honor your beliefs, whatever their beliefs are.
Right.
But if they recognize that, well, maybe some of my beliefs are holding me back, they're limiting me because some of my beliefs are fear-based beliefs, then I might want to examine, like, why do I believe that? Where'd they come from? Because most people have taken on beliefs from other people automatically. They haven't even chosen them. They just automatically
they didn't test those beliefs. They just blindly believed them without any proof that is exactly the way it is.
That's it. So they were just accepted it from their parents or from their friends or from society and said, well, this is the truth. Well, is it? So start looking at that. And I think that's what losing a loved one, I don't like to say losing because they're not lost, but the perception, physically losing our loved one can be the catalyst for us looking at, well, what is life really about? Who am I really?
It is a lot of times. Yeah. It's a great catalyst. It's the
most powerful one for people. And it means you're on a journey now, and there's no simple answer, right? So thanks so much for joining me for this conversation. And
well, thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. And same. I just enjoy sharing. We talk about this forever, right? And then we'll be on here for 5 hours. Hours later, we'll go, what happened? But thanks so much. And till next time, everybody, you know how to find Josh. Give out your website.
HopeParanormal.com is you can get my book. I have my free app. I have my paid app. I have my readings and sessions I do. All of that's through there. Yep.
Right. And my website is supernaturallove.com with 2 L's, supernaturallove.com. And so, and if you're watching this somebody later and you're not in our Facebook group, join our Facebook group, Soulmates in the Afterlife. Go look for it. And we'd love to have you if you're trying to connect with a loved one through the veil. We talk about that constantly and go live in the group every Tuesday, which is tomorrow. And in fact, tomorrow and every day I go live, every week, I go live. And it's usually based on what Spirit tells me we need to focus on. So I think tomorrow they told me, let's talk about, help them actually feel their loved one through the veil, through a process that they've given me. So that should be interesting. So we're a lot into creating experiences for people and not just yakking, although we do talk a lot. because we got to talk a lot. There's a lot to talk about with this stuff, but also to lead people into having a visceral experience of the spirit world, because I do believe it's not difficult to do.
Right.
And so when we come together as a group, the energy, like, because you have your Patreon group, when you work with groups, then the energy is stronger. So it like helps everybody have a deeper experience, right? As opposed to even just working with them one-on-one.
Yep.
So while I do one-on-one sessions where I guide people through this too, I love the group work because, it's just more rewarding, more fulfilling, and we all can experience a lot more from the other side, with the other side. So thanks, Josh. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Awesome. You're right on. It's great.
All
Thanks
right.
again. I'm glad I got to connect with Elizabeth again. It was great. So all of you, thank you.
Everybody.
You too. Glad to
All
see
right.
you again, Josh.
Yep. You got it. All right, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you later.